And welcome back to the next episode of the Million Dollar Coach podcast. Joined today by Ash and Sam. Christina's off in the sunny streams of Idaho Falls, doing all sorts of good work up there. So I did joke with her this morning going, well, now you've got your own CrossFit documentary. Clearly, podcast is not a priority, just our little tiny chitty chat. Whatever, Trevor. But no, in all seriousness, she's up there doing some amazing work with CrossFit AMROC. So us to discuss today. How are you guys?
Wonderful. How are you?
I'm psyched. I'm happy to be here.
I'm excited to hear Sam talk because I know he's raring to go.
He's fully loaded on coffee. He's caffeinated. He's ready to go. Yeah. It's a very big cup, Sam. It's a very big cup.
I'm a dad, right? I'm a dad. I live on caffeine and dreams, baby.
Well, no, dreams would indicate that you sleep. So just saying.
Wow, isn't that the truth?
That's good.
Woo. No false advertising here. We keep it real. Yeah. Mind you, poor Christina coached a 4:30 a.m. class today, so she's probably blessed that she's not here. There's not enough caffeine to help her do that today. So I don't know who even runs a 4:30 class, but today's topic, something that I think is important to touch on because we've covered a lot of territory in this podcast. And one of our big things at FitFiliate is, awareness precedes action. Mm-hmm. Now, we know that coaches are aware that they don't have financial stability. Yeah. But I don't think that they're necessarily aware of their part in solving that or their power in solving that, let's use a better word, rather than, hey, affiliate owner, I need you to pay me more. I need you to give, to send me to my L2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever it is, or, you need to give me because I'm doing the things. Yeah. Rather than, let's look at it from a different perspective, which is why we've gathered today to see if we can shed some different light on that. It's maybe going to help coaches, and we're not limiting to this. You don't have to be in an affiliate to get some value from this. It's, what's your part in changing your own trajectory and creating the things for you that you think you're lacking. And away we go.
Welp. I think my view on this can be summed up with the following very short story. Years ago, I came awake in the middle of the night. I'm asleep, I'm laying in bed. I came awake in the middle of the night, and I had this idea for a book. And the title, like I could see it written on a page, was "It's All Your Fault and Why That's a Good Thing," right? So you control nothing. Like, as a human being who exists and operates in the world, you control almost nothing. So the notion that we can get upset because something hasn't been handed to us or something like that is a little bit of a misnomer. There's a misunderstanding there. The only thing you have control over ever from now until the end of time is your thoughts, your actions, how you react to things. Everything else is I'm trying to think of you can't control the weather. You can't control politics. You can't control what show comes on the TV. You can't control if your power goes out and you don't get to watch TV. You can't control how your affiliate owner chooses to operate his business. You can't control whether or not your affiliate owner wants to give you a raise. You can control your pursuit of bettering your education and attempting to deepen the value that you offer inside of your affiliate. Absolutely. Right. And in doing so, you can position yourself as a more valuable coach, but none of those things are there's not a causal relationship between those things. Right. And I am guilty of this. I have a running joke where everyone goes to their level 1 and they leave and they're like, I know everything. And then everyone goes to their level 2 and they leave and they're like, I know nothing. And then everyone gets their level 3. If you go and you get your level 3, you think to yourself, I must know everything now at which point you turn to your affiliate owner.
Oh,
What's up?
I'm just sitting here on full screen and I hear a little
My
jump and I
dog's
went,
going nuts.
who has jumped in here? And I went, oh, it's Tony.
We've been hacked.
Oh, Tony.
Yeah,
has-
been hacked.
Just made
Tony
my
has
day.
hacked the mainframe. I was passing
Yeah.
through the hallways and I saw the sign on the door that said recording in session. So I
Hilarious.
said, crashing this party. And then I heard Sam
Oh.
ranting about L3s. So happy to be here.
So happy
Welcome
to
to the
see your
table.
face, Tony.
Yeah, mate. So I'll finish real quick. So, like, you get your level 3, you turn to your affiliate owner and you say, cool, I know everything now. Pay me. And the confusion comes in where somehow and this is something that Tony said a long time ago, in this ecosystem of coaches and affiliate owners, the only measure we have for like measuring a coach's value in terms of like a tier system or anything is those level systems. You know, before there was a level 4, we have that now as well. But none of that speaks to how are you actually affecting change inside of the affiliate. None of that speaks to the actual value that you are bringing to people's lives. And so a lot of coaches are aware, especially if you've got your level 3, you're coaching 6-7 years or something like that now, and you're doing the math. You're like, how many hours do I have to coach to make like a reasonable amount of money? And then all you have to try to figure out is like, cool, let's take that money. What would I have to do to double that? Well, it's double the hours. Well, that's a problem. Your affiliate don't run that many classes, you know, and like it falls apart real quick. And so we have this ceiling on this model that we've been practicing, which is dollars for hours, classes coached. And for us as coaches, and this is our assertion here at the MDCP, the solution is not to look at your affiliate owner with your hand open. The solution is instead for you to be able to realize the incredible value that you already possess and for you to now take a leading role in generating your own revenue.
Yeah, and let's like take a second and acknowledge the fact that, you know, you take level 1, level 2, level 3, Bergener, gymnastics, what else is out there, mobility, whatever you can take. You get all the information, you get the packets, you maybe take the quizzes or the tests if they're involved, and then you're like, okay, I did the thing, but no one tells you what to do with it. So unless it was Tony, because Tony was very good at giving some feedback with the gymnastics course.
Like I'm already interrupting this whole thing because now you guys are just giving me credit for things that I didn't actually do.
That's why I was so happy to see you, because I was already raring this in my brain before you popped in here. That was the only course I had been to where any instructor said, don't go back and try to throw everything into a class. Take a week, ignore it all, and then, you know, put a little bit pick one thing you want to work on in class in your warm-ups and throw it into warm-ups. But nobody else tells you how to apply the knowledge that you're getting, right? So that's really up to us as coaches to figure out, okay, how am I going to break this down and where can I start to utilize it? And that's, I think, where, you know, we forget that middle step because we just go, I paid the money, I got the certificate, now I'm a better coach.
Yeah.
Because I have the it's in my brain, I can do it, right?
So now pay me more.
Yes. Yeah. And that's where everything gets lost, and then we get, you know, we have some
So how do we, you know, talking to our audience of, you know, coaches is, you know, they're aware that they don't have enough money and that they've got all this knowledge and they don't know what to do. So if it's not the affiliate owner's fault or responsibility to pay me more, then how do I fix that without having to look awkwardly inward and go, maybe it's me?
Well, so first of all, I think a lot of coaches take for granted the amount of information they have. I like to think most, especially like higher level coaches, you've been doing this a long time. And not just like passively, you know, where you show up, you set the clock, you drink your coffee. Like if you've actually been attempting to better your abilities as a trainer, if you've actually been attempting to connect with your members and affect positive change in their life, and you've been doing that for a little bit of time, right? That doesn't happen accidentally, and in the pursuit of that, as a general statement, you acquire more knowledge to make you more effective, right? You have probably forgotten more about health and fitness and CrossFit that most people will ever know, right? And I think that's the thing that so many coaches, and especially higher level coaches, take for granted. To them, it's, well, of course there's, X number of points of performance for the snatch, or, how do you not know that? Like, how do you not know the breakdown for the number of calories in each one of the macronutrients, right? Of course they don't know that. They don't get paid to know that. Like, that's our job as coaches, is to shortcut them to success without them having to invest the time and the energy and to acquire that knowledge and then understand it and then implement it, right? Like, that's our role. And so I don't want to make the assumption that, like, coaches are aware. I think it's too easy to forget. And in fact, if coaches were actually going to turn around and do the next thing, which they have to do, which no one wants to do, which is to look inward, awkward as it may be, and get ready to do something about it, when they do that and they start producing something of value, chances are they're going to have, not dumb it down, but they're going to have to go slower than they think. They're not going to be able to open a fire hose of information and have it be like taken in and retained in the way that they might hope it would be.
And I think,
I'm just here to smile and nod in this podcast.
I'm
smile and nod in this podcast. I'm proud of you,
No. Thank you, sir. I think, to that point, Sam, is, they definitely, need to understand the path is probably not just like, just going to go out and word vomit information over people. But I do slightly disagree in the fact that, they know that they don't have financial stability. Like, if they look at their bank account and they're uncomfortable, like which most coaches do,
sure,
or they're juggling A to B, like, they know that they don't have it. I think that the question is, like, is it okay to achieve? Mm. Is it achievable? And what's the path that, doesn't involve me having to ask somebody else for that?
Right. And I agree entirely. I agree entirely that coaches look at their bank statement and they're like, oh shit, and I do the same thing, still do the same thing sometimes, The difference is, rather not the difference, but my point is, I don't believe coaches need to go out and acquire more information. I believe the coaches know everything they need to save themselves. And what we need to realize as a community is we don't need anybody's blessing or ordination or permission to save ourselves. We need to act, and you already possess the tools to be successful.
So what's the block? What's stopping them?
The $64,000 question.
That's right.
Wow.
The dog has the answer.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I don't know what she's barking at.
She's excited about answering that question.
I mean, I know what the block is for me. The block for me was and is my desire for perfection. I have this idea in my brain that I can plan and script and checklist and task complete my way to the perfect thing. And in doing that, we've talked about this before, taskerbation, right? I don't ever actually have to do the thing. I can logistic and like forecast all my way into oblivion, right? The reality for me is doing the thing, which I'm not used to doing, and so therefore it's uncomfortable and scary, but also has the most potential for growth and change in my life. Doing the thing, I'm not doing that. But if I am working on doing it, I get to be like, look at all the progress I'm making, you know? And like, you could get on social media and share about, you know, like, what was it, Ryan Holiday? Wrote about this in his book. He's like, people love to go to coffee shops and take a photo of them with their laptop at a desk at a coffee shop and be like, hashtag writing my novel, right? Where's the fucking book? Like, don't show me your process. Show me the product. And for me, I avoid producing by thinking about producing or planning about producing because it's less scary.
Yeah.
And I avoid it because I think that the production has to be perfect. And it doesn't. In fact, it shouldn't. It probably can't be. I just need to do.
And I would argue that like that block is probably different for everyone. You know, I mean, I'm the person who has an idea board and a bajillion ideas, but have I acted on any of those ideas? One, you know, and that's for me, like, I know that's kind of I'm just like, ooh, and this idea, ooh, maybe this one will be good. And then I'm just in my own
But
brain.
Is the block, though, the same then? That it's scary to take the action because you might fail, or even scary, you might succeed and don't know what the fuck to do with that. So like, Ash, you've got the idea, Sam, you've got the quest for perfection.
Yeah.
It's something I've been guilty of as well. But, you know, is the block not the same in that it's the fear of, you know, either the unknown or the doing or the failing or the actual succeeding? In both cases, it stops you moving forward.
Is this a trick coaching call? Is that why Tony's here? Therapy right now?
I just, like, in my brain, I was like, I'm waiting for someone to tell me I'm good enough. Like, I'm waiting for someone to tell me, like, you're good enough. Like, you're okay, Sam. You're good enough to do these things. Like, I'm waiting for permission.
So
and
your question, Lisa, is the block the same then?
Yeah, like, I mean, for everybody, and not talking just specifically you two, like you two,
just disguised as
in front of me.
Things.
Yeah, is that fear of, and you can, you know, you can put lipstick on it, it's still going to be a pig at the end of the day. Like, it's like, if it's fear, it's fear. Like, it's there's something in that that's stopping you, and you can come up with a million ways to word around it, which, you know, Tony will attest on my coaching calls. I have a million ways to word around the same thing. It's you know, it's a fear. So how do having that, again, getting back to our, you know, starting point where we talked about awareness precedes action, is like, how do I then become aware of that? And then once I'm aware of it, start to take the action around that and go, oh, I'm doing that thing again because I feel like, you know, I'm, you know, just like gum stuck on somebody's shoe kind of thing.
Yeah. Well,
the context is the same in all of you. The context is the same. It's the nuance that changes.
Yeah. And, you know, it was kind of, I think Christina said something about this last week. You know, and then when we remove we think we're not trying to perfect for Sam, or I'm like, no, don't go on ideas, stay on this one. But then, like, Christina's thing was like, she found a different way to distract herself. And it's like, we find new ways to, it's just this hairy monster. And that's why we have coaches, and they're the ones that keep us on track.
Reluctantly, why you all have coaches.
You know, to bring awareness to those things. But yeah, I mean, having the awareness, once you know about it, you can never turn back, right? So even if you don't catch all the things that you're doing to stop or to block yourself or whatever you want to say, there is still going to be, you're able to then ask that question, like pause and just go, am I trying to perfect? Am I just trying to distract myself? Like, where should my focus be? Is this moving me in the direction I was trying to go? Or is it going to pull me back?
Well, and
it's like a fun talk show.
Right. And like, there's a reason they say ignorance is bliss. Like, it, to Ash's point, once you know, you can't unknow. That shit's uncomfortable. Like, you look in the mirror, if you get willing to look in the mirror, because most people just are, no way, I'm not looking, the mirror doesn't exist, destroy all mirrors ever. Like, but if you get willing to look in the mirror and you are capable of being honest with yourself about what you see, and maybe you need a coach to sift through the many like lenses of bullshit.
To hold the mirror.
Yeah, like,
just,
and to like pry your eyeballs open. Like, once you get there and you look and you're honest about what you see, no more can you distract yourself by saying, well, I don't know. Because like I don't know, or I didn't know, or I'm unaware, or whatever. That is a huge crutch for so many people. And this is just humans. This is not just coaching, right? But if you are willing to do it and you look, you take that crutch away, the very next thing is, okay, cool. You are the person who knows. If your life is surrounded by shit, you wanted it that way. And now it's your turn to step forward into a lead role in your own life and address your shit.
And I think, you know, where we talk about, you know, understanding that as humans, we're really quick to say that whole, you know, well, you know, we do the best with what we know. But even when we know better, we don't necessarily do better. So, does that make sense, Sam? Sam's like, well, as an excuse. So we go, well, I just did the best with what I had, with what I knew. Like, you know, people who struggle with parenting, for example, it's like, well, this is what I've been shown, this is what I know. And then someone will extol the virtue of like, well, you know, if you know better, we can do better. But we don't necessarily, we all, having that awareness means we know better, but doesn't mean we're going to do better.
Mm.
No,
all right, I'm jumping in here. Hold on one second, Sam,
okay.
Because then I got to jump back out of here because I love you all, but I'm just making my rounds. Humans are only motivated by one thing. You guys know what that one thing is? All humans. They all fall in the exact same camp.
Self-preservation?
Sort of. What's that look like? The only uniquely human motivation is the avoidance of discomfort. Period.
I was going to say
all
warm
of them
spot by the
group
fire.
back down to the exact same thing, right? And so you have to understand that for all of you guys, not just coaches, but humans in general, that avoidance of discomfort takes on many, many different types of nuances. Particularly, it takes on one of the most common ones, which is the greatest lie ever told, which is perfectionism. Mm-hmm. Right? There is no such thing. First of all, perfect doesn't exist. There can be no perfectionism. But second of all, perfectionism is just a defense mechanism that we all use, right? It's beneficial in nature, in context, and in conversation. So we like to say it because it's positive in terms like, I'm just a perfectionist. But all it really honestly is enabling our own inaction. That's it. Right? We use perfection as an ability and a crutch to keep us from taking any action because we don't want to get it wrong or it needs to be perfect, right? And so the reason we don't want to take action, all humans, not just coaches, but humans in general, is that there is very few things that are as uncomfortable as change in any single conceivable area, right? And so we love our comfort zones, we love our complacent systems, and there's nothing wrong with being comfortable because I think ultimately that's what we're all pursuing. But if we're not trying to break that paradigm and we're not trying to evolve that and grow that thing, then we're never going to actually change. And so if you understand that all humans are motivated by the avoidance of discomfort, and they enable that discomfort by being able to stay where they're at, you can kind of see that we all end up in this big catch-22. And then what gets even worse about that is that the entire Western education system has failed almost all of us, right? And it set us up for failure from the very beginning. And what I mean by that is that all of us are taught from a very early age, and by all of us, I mean pretty much everybody who is in an educational sense now, not just like training or otherwise, but we have this belief around education in terms of information or accumulation, in that when we learn something, we own that thing, right? And so we tend to pursue information not to do anything with it, but to own it, right? I want to own my L3, I want to own my L2, I want to own my L1, not with any consideration of what will I do with this information, right? We're never taught to rethink, reconsider, or challenge the very nature of the things that we've learned, because that in itself is very uncomfortable, right? To think about what I know and to question what it is that I consider to hold as true is a really uncomfortable thing, right? And so you get a lot of coaches who accumulate with the intention of ownership, not to necessarily challenge or relearn, to enable them to be perfectionists and so that they can stay where they're at and not have to make any change. Because the other side of it is that in regards to the awareness conversation, the mirror is motivating, right? You know that as soon as you are aware of the discomfort of your situation, that's when you flip the script, right? Because right now we're trying to avoid change because we want to stay the same because that seems the same. But as soon as you shine a light on it and you realize that like, oh, this situation is actually uncomfortable. Now I need to change. Now the motivation can switch against it. And so if you understand what the uniquely human motivation is, which is the avoidance of discomfort, you can either use it to enable yourself or you can use it as a superpower to motivate anybody.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say about that one.
Mic drop out.
As Tony just unchecks himself from the entire room.
Yeah.
I'll stick around for a couple more minutes. I got like
Good.
10.
Good. All right, so we have coaches. They have problem, right? They have hopefully an awareness of problem, right? Do they see a way out? Let's say they're aware, right? Do they see a way out, right? I know from experience that a lot of coaches don't see a way out, and so they exit the process and they go and get a real job. Mm. And like, I know very few long-term, financially stable coaches who are not famous for some reason other than being a coach, and, you know, and go even further, who were not on seminar staff, as an example. I know very, very few of them. And I think that's a huge problem.
Agreed. Ash?
I ruined the dynamic.
No.
I broke the soap opera.
No, I'm the clear path out is what I'm stuck on.
I think it's bold to assume that they want out or they even want to find the path, right? I mean, because remember, most of us have learned to own our knowledge, not to do anything with it, right? And so to assume that the vast majority of people are even looking for a way out, I think is bold, right? I don't think many of them are.
They simply accept things as they are.
Yeah, I think that most of us seek entitlement and enablement, right? So like we want to, just because I now own something that I acquired, to be respected for that thing, right? And like, you know, it's you know, you can make it completely opposite, make it about material possessions. Two types of people can own a Ferrari, right? One person wants to park it and be told that they're amazing because they own it. The other one wants to race it, right? One of them wants to challenge the entire engineering of that entire vehicle to its absolute limits. The other one wants to just valet park it, right? Yeah. And the same thing can really be said about training in general, and it really honestly just level 1s, 2, 3s, and 4s. Like there's a lot of people pursuing status in the CrossFit ecosystem. They're not pursuing development.
Ooh.
That is a big part of it, right? I mean, we have all been conditioned to believe that once I have my master's degree, I get more money. Once I have, you know, my PhD, I'm worth more money. Right. But that's not the case over here, because there's not an entire system behind the development and the identification and defense of what those accreditations are, right? Like the level 1, 2, 3, and 4 are absolutely amazing accreditations, but they don't necessarily come with, nor did they ever imply that they were going to come with, status or some degree of economic benefit, right? It was your job to take that information and to rethink and reconsider and apply that information. But most people don't want to do that, right? Like, look at what happens on the floor when, you know, people come back from, you know, whether they're out 1 or they're out 2 and they're fired up, and they have all these new cues and all these things that they learned this weekend because, you know, they got put in the circle and they got challenged and that broke them. So they come back and they attempt to just take that ownership of what they learned this weekend and then use it. And it doesn't fit into that scenario that happened to play in front of them. And they just shut down, right? You just watch their face go blank because they're just like, uh-oh, I'm not prepared for this again. Because an entire step of that, which is really the first step of, you know, of the 6 pillars, is think critically about what you consume. Just don't do it. People don't do it because you might be found wrong.
Yeah.
That hurts. Like nobody ever wants to be wrong. And if you're going to ever be right, you're going to need to spend a lot more time wanting to be wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that the notion that a lot of people don't look for a way out because they accept things as they are. They accept the status quo, right? And so, okay, so how do we, and like this is a thing that we've talked about internally, like how do we make this actionable for people, right? Let's assume they're aware now. They listen to Tony, or they listen to us, and they're like, okay, yes, there's a problem. I see that there's a problem. I'm going to have to get honest with myself that there's a problem, right? The problem includes the fact that I've sat here with my hand out and I got the idea somehow that when I got my level 3, as an example, that I would automatically be making $120,000 somehow from my affiliate owner who doesn't pay himself, right? You know, I could talk a lot about this, but I'm trying to create an opportunity for other people here. How do I'm just trying to be self-aware. How do we chart the path? Like, what does the path look like? Because I can point to someone and be like, it's your fault, fix it. What do they got to do?
I mean, you got to start where you're at, right? I mean, that I think in itself is a big missing piece of everybody's journey. And so much of the content that gets produced by both sides of this, affiliate and MDCP, it's like, you know, the adage of GPS is completely useless if you don't have a starting point, right? Or if you don't have a destination. And I think it applies to the landscape, as we'll call it, you know, of the professional trainer. You have to understand where you're at, and a lot of that is, you know, what brought you into this thing. And I think what we really see a lot of is that there's two types of people that are drawn to this career. Some people are here with the intention of betterment of other people, and honestly, and this is not even necessarily a bad thing, there's some people who are here for status, right? They want to become important in the class, in the gym, and otherwise, outside of the ability to necessarily win a workout. And there's nothing really inherently wrong with that, because a lot of those people come in for that intention and then find the value and the reward of you know, developing or helping other people, and then that kind of changes them. So it's not that it's good or bad, it's just different. But it's important to know that starting point, because that sets up the whole path of trajectory, you know, in terms of awareness and action and everything else. But you have to know what brought you into this thing, because it's kind of like getting back to your why, right? Like, because if you understand what brought me in and where I started from, and I'm honest with that thing, that allows me to be much more relatable. And I think where we get to a lot of problems with a lot of people in coaching in general is that, you know, obfuscation is the curse of the novice, right? We tend to overcomplicate everything, right, in the approach or the development of our knowledge. And one of those things that ends up happening is that through our own development, our own process, we tend to become unrelatable and we forget where we came from. And so I think, you know, a big piece of this that has to be brought up is that you have to know where you're starting from, so that you can, one, return back there and know how to better, you know, retrieve other friends and bring them with you, but really ultimately know what path that you're on. And that's kind of like a sort of a sidebar cautionary thing. It's not necessarily directly related to what Sam was saying, but I think it's important that people do start right there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as we get to the point, we're going to put a bow on this lovely, engaging chat we've had today. Is someone sitting here, they're listening to this, we've made them aware. So yep. Like, okay, well, you know, yeah, I've clearly got this issue. No one's coming to save me. I've got to save myself.
Yep.
Give us an action step that someone can get to the end of this episode and go, amazing episode. I'm going to now go and do X.
I promise this isn't because of the little tagline that's under Tony's name. You have to believe in yourself. You have to believe that you are capable of solving your own problem. Because if you don't, like, this is all fakakta. Like, this is all for nothing. So, and that may be like, maybe the hardest thing to do is like get to a point where you're like You not only can you like, you look in the mirror and you pull a Jack Handy and you're like, I'm nice, I'm knowledgeable, and gosh darn it, people like me. Like you have to be willing to act on that. And to Tony's point, you have to be willing to be wrong. And if you can do that, from there, you can do any number of things. There are lots of ways to begin to do something, right? But the point of this is you've got to believe in you. You've got to believe that it's a thing that you can solve yourself. Because if you end up in a position where, like I was, where I'm just sitting for someone to say, Sam, you're good enough, like nothing's ever going to happen. Like nobody can do that for you. We talked about this on another podcast. Like nobody can fix that. Like you've got to, if you have to call a coach, call a coach. You got to call a therapist, call a therapist. Like do what you got to do, but you've got to get there. You've got to get far enough along that path that you're willing to start take some action, because that's the only thing that no one else, like you've got to take that step. It's unavoidable.
Do the thing.
Part of that belief is knowing where you're trying to get to. And I think that that's where a big part of it goes wrong for most people. We're used to a path being laid out in front of us, 7th grade, 8th grade, 9th grade, junior college, graduate work, master's degree, PhD, job, pay me, retire.
Yeah.
I'm done. Right. And so, that journey aside, you chose an unconventional path. You chose, in my opinion, the single greatest path any human can embark on, which is becoming a coach. But there's a problem. Most coaches aren't coaches. And that is the first big action step that I want everybody to take out of this, is that know that you need to know where you're going and you need to define that thing. And to Sam's point, in order for that to happen, you have to believe that you're capable of doing that thing. Right. And so you also have to understand that your entire creation is of your own volition. You can do anything you want to do inside this industry. It's the beauty of being a coach. But because of that exact same thing, coaching can look like a lot of different things. And this is where it gets very confusing for most people. And so when you define that journey and what you want to get down to, you have to be very clear and very honest. Do I want to be a trainer? Do I want to be an educator? Do I want to be a coach? Right? And those things are all very different, and they all have very different paths, and they're all very well intended. But if you're going to create something out of this thing, there is, of the three of them, probably no better opportunity than being a coach. But the second thing that's the most important thing, in my opinion, is we have to better define what it means to be a coach, so that you can start to learn as a listener to this, so you can start to learn to tell everybody who's not a coach that they're not one, so that you can then understand the value of what it means to be one.
Yeah.
Awesome. And I think that's the good way to put a pin in it. You have enjoyed the content, please like and subscribe on whatever platform you're consuming this, and help a friend out. Share it with a friend who you think could benefit from, making their life better as a coach and seeing their own value, because that's what we're here to do. All right, team. Thank you for that. And we'll see you on the next one.
Just not me.